Hello and welcome back to 3 Plus 1, where we talk about people, politics, and pop culture. And I am giving you a little bit of a special mini episode to talk about President Biden's commencement to the graduating class of Morehouse College. Now, I know that many of you have seen or you heard or you knew that this year's commencement address that President Biden would be giving would be to the men of Morehouse College in Atlanta. Now, 2 weeks prior, I would say about 2 weeks prior to President Biden coming to Atlanta to give the speech, the news was overflowing with speculation and commentary about what would happen at this graduation in the face of the numerous encampments and protests happening around this country at various colleges and universities. And people were saying there's no way the students at Morehouse College aren't going to do the exact same thing. Now, I want to say in full transparency, my black ass who went to a PWI, Mississippi State University, 2 degrees obtained from there, also said this was probably not a good idea for our president in this current political climate. And I am proud to say without any hesitation publicly before the world, I was wrong as wrong can be. I was as wrong can be. President Biden's commencement address, the 140th commencement of this fine institution, was a tremendous success for President Biden, for his campaign, but most importantly, for just the United States as a whole. There were so many pieces of wisdom that I gleaned from this speech, and I've pulled together some of the highlights of the speech to share with you, taken from social media that I want to share with you. Leading up to this, there were lots of people who took a lot of heat and a lot of criticism for it. There were protests, petitions, all types of actions and efforts to get this to not happen. But it happened. And there were protests. There were protests that occurred. There were some students who were graduates who turned their backs back to the president when he was speaking. There was one faculty member who also stood up, turned her back to the president. But for the most part, the protest was seen as silent protests. The protests were all seen to me and echoed by the president of the university as being respectful and respectfully done. And I think that for everyone out there, all over social media, all over mainstream media, that expected the worst, you, like me, underestimated the value and the power of the academic integrity that upholds Black excellence in this country. And again, I'm proud to have been wrong. I want you to take a look at some of the highlights of this commencement speech. I'm going to come back at the end and give some final commentary, but check this out.
Washington, D.C., when I got a call from the first responders, my fire department in my hometown, that forever altered my life. They put a young woman, first responder, on the line to say, there's an automobile accident. Tractor trailer hit your wife's car while she was Christmas shopping with 3 children. And she, poor woman, she just blurted out, she said, your wife and daughter are killed. My 13-year-old daughter are dead. And your almost 3-year-old and 4-year-old sons are badly injured. We're not sure they're going to make it either. I rushed from Washington to the bedside. I wanted to pray, but I was so angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at the world. I had the same pain 43 years later when that 4-year-old boy who survived was a grown man and a father himself, lying in another hospital bed at Walter Reed Hospital, having contracted stage 4 glioblastoma because he was a year in Iraq as a major, won the Bronze Star, living next to a burn pit. Cancer took his last breath. In this walk of life, you can understand, you come to understand, that we don't know where or what fate will bring you, or when. We also know we don't walk alone. When you've been a beneficiary of the compassion of your family, your friends, even strangers, you know how much the compassion matters. I've learned there is no easy optimism, but by faith, we can find redemption. I was a single father for 5 years. No man deserves one great love, let alone 2. My youngest brother is a hell of an athlete. Did a great thing. He introduced me to a classmate of his. Said, "You'll love her. She doesn't like politics." But all kidding aside, until I met Jill, who healed the family and all the broken places. Our family became my redemption. Many of you have gone through similar or worse and even worse things. But you lean on others. They lean on you. And together you keep the faith in a better day tomorrow. But it's not easy. I know 4 years ago, as some of your speakers have already mentioned, it felt like one of those Saturdays. The pandemic robbed you of so much. Some of you lost loved ones, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, who aren't able to be here to celebrate with you today. You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure? When I sit behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, in front of the fireplace across from my desk, I have two busts, one of Dr. King, one of Bobby Kennedy. I often find myself looking at those busts, making decisions. Ask myself, are we living up to what we say we are as a nation? To end racism and poverty? To deliver jobs and justice? To restore our leadership in the world? I look down and see the rose around my wrist. That was that of my late son he had on him when he died at Walter Reed. I was with him. I asked myself, what would he say? I know the answer because he told me in his last days. My son knew the days were numbered. The last conversation was, "Dad, I'm not afraid, but I'm worried. I'm worried you're going to give up when I go. You're going to give up." We have an expression in the Biden family. When you want someone to know, give your word, you say, "Look at me." He was lying to me, he said, "Look at me, Dad. Look at me." He said, "Give me your word. Give me your word as my father that you will not quit, that you will stay engaged. Promise me, Dad. Stay engaged. Promise me. Promise me." I wrote a book called Promise Me, Dad, not for the public at large, although a lot of people ended up buying it. It's for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to know who Beau Biden was. The rose around my wrist, the bust in my office remind me that. Faith asks you to hold on to hope, to move heaven and earth, to make better days. Well, that's my commitment to you, to show you democracy, democracy, democracy is still the way. If black men are being killed in the street, we bear witness. For me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, to root out systemic racism. You ask, what is democracy? We can't stop wars that break out and break our hearts. In a democracy, we debate and dissent about America's role in the world. I want to say this very clearly. I support peaceful, nonviolent protest. Your voices should be heard, and I promise you I hear them. I determined to make my administration look like America. I have more African Americans in high places, including on the court, than any president in American history, because I need the input. What's happening in Gaza and Israel is heartbreaking. Hamas's vicious attack on Israel, killing innocent lives, and holding people hostage. I was there 9 days after. Sent pictures of tying a mother and a daughter in a rope, pouring kerosene on them, burning them, and watching as they died. Innocent Palestinians caught in the middle of all this. Men, women, and children killed or displaced in desperate need of water, food, and medicine. It's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's why I've called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting. Bring the hostages home. And I've been working on a deal as we speak, working around the clock to lead an international effort to get more aid into Gaza, rebuild Gaza. I'm also working around the clock for more than just one ceasefire. I'm working to bring the region together, working to build a lasting, durable peace. Because the question is, and you see what's going on in Israel today, what after? What after Hamas? What happens then? What happens in Gaza? What rights do the Palestinian people have? I'm working to make sure we finally get a two-state solution, the only solution, for two people to live in peace, security, and dignity. This is one of the hardest, most complicated problems in the world, and there's nothing easy about it. I know it angers and frustrates many of you, including my family. This is one of the hardest, most complicated problems in the world, and there's nothing easy about it. I know it angers and frustrates many of you, including my family. But most of all, I know it breaks your heart. It breaks mine as well. Leadership is about fighting through the most intractable problems. It's about challenging anger, frustration, and heartbreak to find a solution. It's about doing what you believe is right, even when it's hard and lonely. You're all future leaders, every one of you graduating today. And that's not hyperbole. You're future leaders, all of you. You'll face complicated, tough moments. In these moments, you'll listen to others, but you'll have to decide, guided by knowledge, conviction, principle, and your own moral compass. The desire to know what freedom is, what it can be, is the heart and soul of why this college was founded in the first place, proving that a free nation is born in the hearts of men, spellbound by freedom. That's the magic of Morehouse. That's the magic of America. What happens to you and your family when old ghosts in new garments seize power? Extremists come for the freedoms you thought belonged to you and everyone. Today in Georgia, they won't allow water to be available to you while you wait in line to vote in an election. What in the hell is that all about? Oh, I'm serious. Think about it. And then the constant attacks on black election workers who count your vote. Insurrectionists who storm the Capitol with Confederate flags are called patriots by some. Not in my house. Black police officers, black veterans protecting the Capitol were called another word, as you'll recall. They also say out loud, these other groups, immigrants poison the blood of our country. Like the Grand Wizard and fascists said in the past. But you know and I know, we all bleed the same color. In America, we're all created equal. Extremists close the doors of opportunity, strike down affirmative action, attack the values of diversity, equality, and inclusion. I never thought when I was graduating in 1968, as your honoree just was, we talked about, I never thought I'd be a president at a time when there's a national effort to ban books, not to write history, but to erase history. They don't see you in the future of America, but they're wrong. To me, we make history, not erase it. We know black history is American history. I've been vice president of the first black president and become my close friend, and president to the first woman vice president. Well, I have no idea, no doubt, that a Morehouse man will be president one day, just after an AKA from Howard. She's tough, guys. Look, let me close with this. I know I don't look like I've been around very long. But in my career, for the first 30 years, I was told, "You're too young, kid." It used to stop me from getting on the Senate elevator when I first got there, for real. Now, I'm too old. Whether you're young or old, I know it endures. The strength and wisdom of faith endures. And my hope for you is, my challenge to you is, that you still keep the faith so long as you can. That cap on your head proves you've earned your crown. The question is now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, when you're asked to stand and address the next generation of Morehouse men, what will you say you did with that power you've earned?
You know, I want to know what you think about what you just saw and heard. Of course, I want your opinion, but I personally think this was a moment that President Biden was able to meet flawlessly. He talked about the big issue of what's happening right now in Gaza. He talked about the fact that he wants a ceasefire and supports a ceasefire, and that he's doing what he can from a diplomatic standpoint to achieve that. He gave credibility to the students and their concerns, and he really, to me, did not miss a beat. This was Joe Biden speaking just as clearly and as soundly as I've ever heard him speak while being president of these United States of America. Again, I want to know what you think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, well, be blessed. And whatever you do, keep pushing. I'll see you soon.